Love supplier community. It's fantastic to be here. I'm joining you from my home office, and I hope you guys are comfortable too, wherever you're watching from. And you know what? That's honestly the super fun thing about this is what we do for a living, right? This is how we make money. Is chances are you're probably in your home office as well, or wherever you are watching, or watching live, or watching perhaps a recording of this. And that's before we get into the tips for the holiday season. That really is the most exciting thing for me is doing what we do. Becoming merchants and selling online really empowers you to be able to spend your time in the most effective way, whether that's be at home more with your kids or whatever it is you want to do. So I'm thrilled to be here. Hope you're comfortable. Here we go. Now we're going to talk about Q4. We're going to talk about the holiday season, and I prepared a little tip, kind of like a checklist, a list of tips. I'd love for you to maybe have a look at that in another browser window or print it out or whatever, because we're going to be going through that together in the next few minutes. It's at a URL that's merchantwords.com/Q4. I tried to make it short, as short as I could think of. So if you go to merchantwords.com/Q4 and have a look, a little PDF you can print out or download or just bring up in a new browser, I'm going to be going through the checklist there, and we're going to talk about how you can have the most successful Q4 ever. But before we get rolling with the tips, I just wanted to kind of make sure that if you're new to selling online, if you're new to, if you've never been through a Q4 before, if this will be your first holiday season, relax. Don't panic. Don't freak out. This is going to be great. I like to think of it as, let's say that you're planning a trip to Disney World for the very first time. You've never been. Everybody says it's great. And so you buy the tickets, you get the airplane, you fly there, you stand in line to get in, and then you get in and you're overwhelmed. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, how could this possibly be so fun? This is overwhelming. It's too many lines, too many people, blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't turn around and leave. You wouldn't just go home because it seems too overwhelming. No, you'd stay there and you'd give it a try. You'd go on some rides, and you'd probably wind up having a great time. Well, that's kind of the same way I think when it becomes when we're talking about new online sellers. If you've never been through a Q4 holiday season before, it might feel a little overwhelming at first to prepare for it. But trust me when I say it'll be worth it when you finally get through the bad parts, waiting in line in the crowds, and you finally get on the ride and you're zooming around Space Mountain. You'll be like, whoa, okay, this was worth it. So whatever your situation is, if you've never been through one before, don't panic, relax. There's a little you need to do to get ready for it, but it'll be worth it, I promise. Okay, so here we go. We're going to jump in. My first tip for you has to do with PPC ads. And if you've never done any PPC advertising before, also, just like my analogy, relax. It'll be fine. But now's the time to start. And if you're a PPC expert, great. Keep going. But as we get ready for Q4, what you need to remember is now more than ever, it's important to optimize your PPC campaigns for maximum effectiveness. And people will ask me, they're like, how do I run my PPC campaign differently during the holidays apart from any other day? I like to think about this with another analogy, and that is like, imagine your kids come and say, Mom, Dad, I'm about to ready to go on my very first date. What should I do on my first date? And you give them a bunch of advice. Well, be a gentleman, hold the door open, blah, 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 make sure to brush your teeth, you want to make sure you dress nicely, and you give them all these tips for the first date, right? And so hopefully your son or daughter goes on their first date, has a great time. They come back and they're like, okay, Mom and Dad, I'm about ready to go on my second date. What should I do for my second date? And, well, your advice is kind of the same, right? And so it is also with being an online seller. The things you do for the holidays are absolutely the right things to do for the rest of the year too. Now there's a few holiday specific things, and we'll get into those, but the one point I want to emphasize as we kind of go through all this is the things you're going to do that are most important for the holidays are also important things you need to do for the rest of the year also. So don't think this is things you're going to do only for the holidays, but it's think of it this way. You need to get your tools nice and sharp and nice and ready for the holidays, because that's where a lot of your sales are going to come in, but you need to have your tools sharp all year round. So these are great tips for any time of the year. They just become especially important for the high volume of the holidays. So when it comes to PPC campaigns, if you've never done one before, now's the time to do it. Now's the time to get your feet wet. Now's the time to get in there and create you'll be creating things you might not be familiar with, ad groups, campaigns, different keyword lists and things. Relax. You'll get through it. It's great. And if you're already an expert here, fantastic. What I want to remind you of, and this is the most important point, is you're probably used to a specific budget that you're comfortable with throughout the year. So whatever that budget happens to be for your comfort level or your business velocity or your particular products, you're going to have to remember to know that you're going to have to increase that during the holidays. And I know that might seem counterintuitive because the whole point of looking forward to Q4 is I'm going to sit back and let the profits roll in. Well, yes, the profits will roll in, but think about it this way. Really, you got to put your best face forward. You got to put you have to spend the most money, if you will, in order to get the most money. You know that old analogy, if you want to make an omelet, you have to break a few eggs, or crack a few eggs, whatever that is. It's kind of like that, because if you don't increase your bid, your PPC, the amount of money you're willing to spend, you increase your budgets, a couple of things are going to happen. Either, number one, you're going to get outbid by all of your competitors, and you'll be way below the fold. No one's going to ever see you. They'll be seeing your competitors who are outbidding you. Or you might have your bid amounts correctly, but your budget might constrain you. And so you might have your bids appearing in the right spot above the fold where people are noticing you, but because you didn't increase your overall budget, you might run out. In other words, you might have that ad show just for a few seconds or a few moments, and then all of a sudden your ad stops showing because you hit your budget. So the biggest tip here when it comes to PPC campaigns is make sure to set your expectation accordingly, that when the holidays come, you're going to need to increase your budgets to make sure you're always above the fold. Now, it's up to you to monitor that. It's up to you to check your stats. It's up to you to actually perform a few searches on Amazon and make sure that you're up there where you need to be. And if you're not where you need to be, then I would suggest you mentally prepare yourself to need to increase your bid amounts or increase your budget to make sure you stay there. Because if you don't, the other people are going to wash right over you. Now, you're probably thinking, yeah, but that's going to cost me a lot of money. Well, actually, yes, it's going to cost you a lot of money. But the thing of it is, you have to spend money to make money. So be prepared to spend that money, and you will actually get back all the profit that you won't lose anything, is what I'm saying. You will get back all those profits because of the increased sales. So my first tip for you is the PPC aspect of this. Do not overlook it. Start now. Make sure to get your PPC campaigns up and running and optimized. And then when the holidays come, you probably want to bake in a few of your holiday keyword terms. That's super important. You don't need to do that now, but that's super important as you get closer. Put in your holiday keyword terms, and then the number one thing about PPC is make sure to increase your ad spend, your budget, overall budget, and your PPC clicks. So number one tip, PPC campaigns. Start now, make sure you get it optimized, and when the holidays come, increase your budgets to stay in front of things. Number two is you need to optimize your listing. Now, this is kind of obvious, I know, but when you're optimizing your listing, you need to think about the keywords that people are going to be searching. Now, of course, it's the same now versus this. It's the same now and every other season. You need to have the most optimal keywords, but as the holidays approach, you're going to notice that people use different keywords. People will be thinking more along the lines of gifts, and so keywords that maybe don't work so well in your back-end keywords or in your bullet points or whatever will start working really great as the holidays approach. So, for example, gifts for him, gifts for her, things that are related to the holidays, like makes a great gift. Those kinds of keyword terms don't really do fantastic throughout the year, but they do great during the holidays. So optimizing your listing is kind of a multi-step process. Number one, you need to discover the best terms that work for you year-round. And if you haven't done that in a while, now's the time to start. Because if you haven't optimized your listings, you're really missing an opportunity to have Amazon put you right where you need to be. And the keywords that you put in are two things, really. They're a signal to the customer who reads them, the bullet points and the titles. It's a signal to a customer who reads them that your product is absolutely what they're looking for. But more importantly, it's a signal to the Amazon algorithm that your product should be positioned in the search results that you're targeting. Now, I'm sure you know that the back-end keywords is also super important, and that's where you want to put the keywords where you don't necessarily need the person to see them. You don't need your customers to see them, but you absolutely want the Amazon algorithm to notice you there. And so what I would recommend you do is jump into MerchantWords, do some keyword research, and discover what best keywords work for you, realizing that as we approach December, you're going to want to be able to bake in more keywords that have a holiday slant to them. Talk about the aspect of gift giving and how your product makes a great gift. Now, if keyword research really isn't your thing, and if it's a little too overwhelming for you, perfectly fine. We'll be happy to help you. MerchantWords has a listing advisor service where our experts will jump in, figure out exactly what the best keywords are for your listing, and let you know. So that kind of takes all the stress or guesswork out of do I have the right keywords in my listing or not. We can absolutely help you do that. Now, listing keyword optimization is absolutely important, but that's just one aspect of how you're going to optimize your listing. There's several more, and we'll get to those in a second. The next thing I want to mention, though, is being able to spy on your competitors, perhaps, to get the best keyword knowledge that you need. And MerchantWorks has a tool called ASIN Plus. We're really proud of it. We worked hard to have it be the most comprehensive list of keywords out there that your products or your competitors' products are using to get ranked, high above the fold and noticed. And so what I would encourage you to do is use the ASIN Plus tool to discover where your product's currently positioned, and more importantly, where your competitor's product is positioned, because you can learn a lot from that. Going back to PPC for a moment, you know how I mentioned it's really important to set your budgets accordingly. If you've never been through a Q4 cycle, you might be asking yourself, well, how big is, what should I set my budget at? How many ad impressions do I need? I haven't launched a product in a Q4 ever, and my product's never been through a Q4, so I just don't know. Fantastic, great concern, great question. What you should do is take a look at your competitors' products and see how popular they are, what keywords they rank on, and whenever you discover that, then you can make sure to set your choices accordingly. Okay. Now, moving on. So the next thing I want to talk about is once you've got your listing optimized, once you've used ASIN Plus to make sure that you've seen all your competitors' keywords, and so now you know what keywords you should be using in your listing, the next thing I want you to think about is start using some holiday keywords. Now, the timing here is important. You don't want to necessarily do it now in August, perhaps, but as we get a little closer to December, I would encourage you to start considering using the holiday keywords. Now, if your product is targeted to maybe the Hanukkah audience, then use those sets of keywords. If it's definitely a Christmas thing, use those sets of keywords. And if it's not specific to any particular holiday, it's just a general gift that would be appropriate for any types of those holidays, you use all of those keywords. Now, like I said, if you don't necessarily want that visible to your customers, and you're worried about, well, will people be upset that I position this as a Hanukkah gift or a Christmas gift? If those kinds of things are your concerns, feel free to put them in the back end. In the keywords that people don't see, the back end keywords. But you should work in these keyword phrases somewhere. And I don't really mean keyword stuffing, and that's never a good idea, keyword stuffing. So for example, don't just think up all the holiday keywords you can think of. Think of every Christmas thing, think of every Hanukkah thing, and just kind of slam it in there. What I mean is think carefully about what the user will be searching for when they're looking to give a gift. And if you want your product to be considered in their mindset when they're thinking about giving a gift, then absolutely consider those phrases. And here's what I mean. Many times as sellers, what we do is we forget that really what we need to do is be inside the mind of our customers. And I know that as a seller, we'll probably just pick up a product that we're selling. Oh, let's see, I'm selling this thing. It's an iPhone. It's so many megabytes and so many gigabytes and has so many whatever. We stress over the physical products. Let's see, it's made out of leather. It's got so many stitches per inch, etc. And there's nothing wrong with describing your product. That's absolutely what we need to do as merchants, is describe our products. But think a little deeper. Go one step beyond that and understand that your customers don't really search for the physical description of a product. What they'll often do is type in the problem they're trying to solve. You know that old expression, people don't buy a quarter-inch drill because they need a quarter-inch drill bit. They buy a quarter-inch drill because they need a quarter-inch hole. So think along those terms. Think, what are the problems that the customers are trying to solve? Are they trying to solve, I need exactly this particular toy, or are they trying to solve, I need a good gift for a 6-year-old who blah, blah, blah. So think about your customer. Think about what your customer might search in order to be looking for your product, and then approach it from that point of view. So describe your product, of course, but also think about what's going to be in the mind of your customers as they're shopping, and put those keywords in. All right, next up, what I want to talk about is your product photos. Now, this is kind of an extension of optimizing your listing. In fact, one aspect of optimizing your listing is optimizing your keywords, but of course the most important one is optimizing your photos. So often what we'll do is we'll spend a lot of time obsessing over how we should describe the product, spend a lot of time obsessing over what keywords should be in the product, but then we don't really think about the photography. But if you stop for a moment and imagine the workflow here, the workflow is one of your customers sits down in front of their web browser, they go to their online, they type in Amazon.com, and then now they're about ready to search. They enter in a search phrase, and if you're good and if you're lucky, you'll be above the fold on that search result page. Great, but now you've solved one of the two important steps. You've cleared the first hurdle, and good for you. Congratulations. That's often the biggest one. And you're either appearing above the fold because you've got great organic placement, good for you, or you've got your PPC campaign set with the right bid amounts and budget and everything, also good for you. But you're above the fold, you're in front of their eyeballs, fantastic. First hurdle cleared. Congratulations. Now, the second hurdle is actually convincing the customer to click on you. And the way you do that, of course, is with a compelling title, but also the photography. There's so much psychological mind churning that goes on inside the minds of your customers. Oh, do I want this? Do I want that? Do I want this? Do I want that? If you have beautiful photography, you actually have a much better leg up over your competition. And what I would recommend you do is, of course, spend some time. If you're going to do your photography yourself, there's nothing wrong with that, but spend some time making it be a really beautiful photograph, a nice clean white background, and also, this is very important, a lifestyle photo. What I mean by that is some happy person using your product, and I'm sure you've seen them before. Just look on any website that sells anything, and you'll see happy models sitting there, beautiful people in a beautiful setting using your product, and everybody's happy. Those are lifestyle photos. Make sure to shoot some photography that highlights the features of the product, of course, highlights the size of the product because people need to know how big it is. That's a good idea too. But then include a lifestyle photo. It shows happy people that are really enjoying your product. Very important. And also, if photography is not your thing, there's plenty of services out there that can do product photography for you. Now, another little pro tip is, as we approach the holidays, you might want to have holiday versions of these lifestyle models ready, because if someone is in their mind of like, you know what, I need to give a gift to so and so, I need to make sure that when they open it on Christmas morning or on one of the nights of Hanukkah, that they're going to really love this present I bought for them. The lifestyle photography, if it shows that scenario unfolding, then they'll be like, oh wow, that's exactly it. Okay, so what I would recommend you do is spend some time thinking about your photography. Super important. Optimize your listings with their keywords, of course, but don't stop there. You go one step further into optimizing your photography. Hire a professional if you need to. There's plenty of services out there. If you're going to do it yourself, great. Make sure to have a clean white background for your product photos, and make sure to include lifestyle photos. And for the pro tip for the holidays, make sure that some of those lifestyle photos are geared up with a holiday theme. Shows happy people unwrapping presents, maybe in front of a tree. I'm not sure exactly how you do it, but make sure to include some holiday versions of your lifestyle photos and then swap them in appropriately. Now, obviously the timing's important. You don't want your lifestyle holiday photos appearing in August, but August is a time to be thinking about it. So get that photography ready, and then when December rolls around, you might want to swap that stuff in. Super important. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is social media. A lot of folks think that they need to optimize exactly what the platform provides. So, for example, as they'll optimize their listing with the keywords, they'll optimize their photography, they'll optimize the PPC, they'll optimize everything they can possibly think of, but then they kind of stop there because their mind's sort of boxed in. Well, I've done everything I possibly can on that the e-commerce platform provides me. I guess I'm done. Well, the answer is no, you're not. So you need to remember to merchandise the URL of your product listing. Now, you can do this in a variety of ways, right? But the one I would recommend is reach out to a lot of different strategies you have on social. Whatever your social platform is that you use to bolster your business, make sure that those folks know there's a lot of opportunity to click your links. You've got some incentives for them. You've got some coupons. I'll talk more about couponing in a moment, but that you've got some kind of offer for them. And make sure to reach out and leverage your social media contacts, your social media audience, to make sure that you've got the best coverage possible. So make sure to think outside the box. Don't just keep yourself limited into what the merchant platform provides, and reach out everywhere. Now, I'll confess to you that the things out there in social media are changing all the time. And so whether you are into Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or wherever your audience resides, make sure to reach out to those places and your existing audience as well, in addition to reaching out to new audiences. Think about some outside advertising to drive traffic in, and of course be careful. You don't want to violate any rules or any policies here about purchasing ads inappropriately, but make sure your ads are legitimate, make sure your offers are legitimate, make sure you do everything by the book, but think outside the platform. Reach out to your social media, reach out to your outside influencers, and see if you can drive traffic and interest to your product that way. Especially important for the holidays, because if you think about it, during the holidays everybody's going to be looking for products, and you're actually doing them a favor to make yourself easy to find. And what I mean by that is, you might think now, let me just talk just briefly for a moment about the philosophy of being a seller. You might think that your job as a seller is to get a product and then shove it down the throats of all the people who are going to buy it. I'll give you a quick analogy, and I share this story a lot. If you've heard me say it before, I apologize, but think about it this way. It's like the old Aesop fable where Mr. Sun and Mr. Wind are up in the sky. They're having an argument, and they're saying, they're trying to decide who is more powerful. And Mr. Sunshine says, well, I light the whole earth and plants grow because of me. And Mr. Wind is like, well, I control tornadoes and hurricanes and I can capsize ships. I'm more powerful. And so they see a guy walking by wearing a coat, and they're like, okay, let's have a contest. Whoever can force that guy to take his coat off, then he'll be the winner. And so Mr. Wind goes first, and he blows hard, and he blows hard, and he tries to blow the guy's jacket off. And of course, the harder he blows, the tighter he grabs it, and he's clutching for dear life. And then, as you know, the way the story goes is when it's Mr. Sunshine's turn, all he has to do is just step out there and shine, and the guy takes his own coat off because it's such a beautiful day. And I'd encourage you to perhaps think about being a seller in that way. Your job isn't necessarily to take your product and shove it in the face of people who you want to get to buy it. I think we as sellers, what our job is discover what people want to buy, make sure to put it out there in front of them in the best way and the easiest way for them to find it, and just let them want to come and find it and buy it. And so the idea there is you need to make sure that you have a beautiful sunny day that'll get people to want to take their coat off. And the way you do that as a seller is many of those things I already mentioned. Make sure to put your product in front of them so they can see it. Make sure it's beautiful, the words and the photography and everything. And then when you've done those things, you're really actually doing them a favor by offering this to them because they're out there looking for it. You're not trying to convince people to buy it who don't want to buy things. They want to buy stuff. They're actually waiting to find the right product, and they want to find the right product, and they want to buy it. And it's up to us to simply offer our best opportunity to give them the chance to click on it because they want to. So I'd encourage you to adjust your mindset, and then when it comes to reaching out on social media to try to extend your offer of selling these products to people, don't think of it as going as far and wide as you can to force your product on people. Think of it as going as far as wide as you can to offer your product to people because they will naturally want to take it. You're doing them a favor. Okay, next up, let's talk about inventory. This is super important. If you fulfill your own products, meaning the order comes in and then you take it down and mail it off yourself, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I would encourage you to consider FBA and some of the other fulfillment services that'll do this for you. But you might think, why do I need to worry about the kind of inventory now? It's August. I get it. I understand that you might worry about creating a PPC campaign if you've never done it, or optimizing your listings if it hasn't been a while since you've optimized your listings. I know that those things make sense to do ahead of time, but why stockpile inventory so soon? Well, the reason is some of the categories are gated, and one of the gating factors on some categories is your history as a seller. So if you don't have any history as a seller, you might not be able to sell in the different categories that you're interested in. And I would encourage you to just get in there now, move some product, even if it's just now. I would never want you to fake your way into sales, and so don't list something and go buy it yourself, but list something, have somebody buy it. Maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's someone you don't. But if you get a few sales, then Amazon now takes that as a signal. It's like, okay, this guy's actually sold stuff before. We'll allow him into these certain categories that have a requirement that you need to have some previous sales. So do that now. Get a little history of sales. Chances are you've already got a history of sales, so this is not relevant for you. But what is relevant for you is make sure that you've got a clear line of getting your inventory in ahead of time. Now, if you're sourcing product from overseas and there's a long delay there, of course, factor that in. If you're sourcing products more locally, still consider how it is that you get your inventory. Consider how it is that you send it in, and make sure to do that well ahead of time. Inventory is super important to get in there before the rush starts, so start now-ish. Get ready. Now, the other thing that's important is if you've never been through a Q4 before, if all of the other factors and all these other tips that we're talking about you do correctly, if you set your PPC campaigns right with the right budget, if you do your optimized listings with a great photography, and now you've got people wanting to buy your product in droves, when the volume hits, when the traffic comes, when the avalanche of people looking for your product starts searching for it and starts buying it, you absolutely do not want to run out of inventory. Let me slow down, take a deep breath, and say this again. You do not want to run out of inventory. Very, very bad. So I would say that your best case scenario is, of course, you have exactly the right amount and you end Q4 with just the right amount to satisfy every customer who came. Now, the worst case scenario is just as the beginning of Q4 starts to ramp, you blow out of your inventory and you have nothing left. And I would say actually what you really want to do is if you have plenty of inventory to satisfy all the demand of Q4, and if you wind up with a big stockpile, maybe that's not the worst case scenario. But the worst case scenario is you do not want to run out. So make sure you have plenty of inventory. Now the question is, just like with PPC and setting budgets, how do I know? Right? How do I know how many I'm going to sell? If this is your first time bringing this product to market in a Q4, you don't really know for sure. But what I would encourage you to do is do whatever you can to estimate what your sale volume are going to be. If it's a product that has some competitors, like almost every product does, then look at your competition. See how popular they are. See, do a little projection to see about how many units you believe they've sold. And then the great thing there is you can kind of get just a hunch, a guess about how many you might sell. But even if you overestimate, and even if you're left with a little bit of inventory at the end of Q4, that's still so much better than running out right in the middle. So my tip to you is make sure to solve your inventory problems now, whether that's on the sourcing side or getting them into your warehouses, and make sure to set the right amount of inventory so that you will not run out during the Q4 rush. Because believe me, that's the last thing you want to do. You spent so much time and effort getting all the other pieces in place. You got a great social media campaign to drive interested customers in. You got PPC campaigns. You've got optimized listings, beautiful photography. You've done it all. And it's all for naught if you run out of inventory. So please, 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 as my not my number one tip, but I mean, I've got many tips for you. There's dozens of tips here, but as a super important tip, do whatever you can to not run out of inventory. All right. Now, the next couple of tips all have to do with customer service. And what I mean by that is you've got to be a really great seller. As you know, Amazon and all e-commerce platforms really puts a premium on making sure that you provide excellent customer service. Now, a lot of folks have asked me, George, give me like the black hat tips. Give me the workarounds. I want the shortcuts. I want to know what I can do to convince Amazon that I'm a great seller because I want the top spot. I want to be on the top of every search result page. And you know what? I like to the analogy I like to draw is it's kind of like losing weight. I've got quite a few pounds I could lose before I consider myself fit and healthy. I've got a healthy pot belly here, and every time I look into what the latest trend is to lose weight, the answer is always the same. It's exercise more, eat sensibly, and it doesn't really get any fancier or sophisticated than that. You go see these fancy things you can eat and these fancy workout things you can buy, and it all boils down to just some very simple rules of being fit and losing weight and increasing your health. And the same thing is as a seller. It really boils down to just a few basics. There's no workaround. There's no cheating. There's no shortcuts you can take. And if there are, they will soon be discovered and shut down because really long term, all of the e-commerce platforms and for sure Amazon, they are optimizing towards the best possible customer experience and the happiest possible customers. And anything you do to be aligned with that goal will absolutely help you in the long run. So as we ramp up to Q4, it's now more than ever, it's super important to be the best possible seller you can with the best possible customer service. And sometimes it's hard. I know that as a seller, when someone buys a product and then they break it, they don't like it, they want to get a refund, they want to send it back, sometimes I'm tempted to just say, are you kidding me? You expect me to give you a refund after all the... We get kind of defensive. But as a seller, we really sometimes have to swallow our pride and take the customer's point of view and really bend over backwards and make the customer happy. Now, Amazon and other e-commerce platforms, they reward that when you get excellent customer reviews coming in, when you get excellent reviews either talking about the product, how great the product is, or reviews about talking about how great the seller is and the service and the shipping and the return and everything. No matter what those reviews are, when they're positive, that's a great signal, and you want to develop a track record of that now as we go between here and Q4, so that when you enter Q4, the algorithm says, wow, these are fantastic sellers. They've got everything else they need. They got great they got the PPC bids in the right spot. They got the great keywords that match all the searches. So the algorithm's like, you know what? You get the best spot. You're above the fold. Here you go. You get rewarded for having great customer service. And if it means you have to bend over backwards a little bit, go beyond what you would normally want to do, that's okay in my opinion. So bend over backwards, do some excellent customer service, reach out to anyone, or when people reach out to you for any problem solving, make sure to help them. Just be a great seller. Now, another aspect of that, and this is another one of my tips, is if you are seller fulfilling, or if you are, actually sending out the products yourself, boy, speed of shipping matters so much. And so now more than ever, you want to send a signal to Amazon, you want to send a signal to any of the platforms you're selling on, you want to send a signal to the customers themselves that you care about the customer by shipping the product out right away. Now, often when I buy something that doesn't come from an Amazon warehouse and I know the seller is going to ship it, my expectation's pretty low. When it comes to something I know comes from an Amazon warehouse, I know it's going to get here fast, right? A day or two or whatever the estimate is, and boom, I have it. But as a customer, I realize that when it's a seller fulfilled, and I know the seller is going to probably just drive to their local post office and drop it off, and who knows how long it's going to take to get here, I set my expectation pretty low. So here's an opportunity for you to exceed your customers' expectations. All it takes is for you to be a little extra fast, be a little extra quick when it comes to shipping, reduce that shipping latency or delay down as much as you can, and you'll delight your customers. And part of the problem is, Amazon themselves kind of set up this expectation where if you're not FBA, if you're merchant fulfilled and you're sending your own products yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're competing now with the bar that Amazon set pretty high, and that is next day, same day, a drone's going to drop it off on my front doorstep. This is like the mental image that people have of what it's like to shop on Amazon, and so you're competing against that expectation. You really need to do everything you can to ship quickly. So I just want to remind us all that if you're actually taking product down to the post office, do it quickly, do it fast, do it every day. Make sure to meet or exceed people's expectations. Okay, and then finally, the last tip I have along these lines of customer service is when it comes to returns, boy, you've got to also be fast and courteous and friendly. And like I said, human nature being what it is, and I do this too. Oftentimes when somebody wants their money back, or I feel like they're taking advantage of us, and clearly many times as a seller, people they actually are taking advantage of you. It's unreasonable for people to act the way they do sometimes. They get you a product, they got full use out of the product is exactly as you described it, you shipped it fast, you had it at a fair price, everything was fair, but yet the customer still says, no, I don't want it, whatever, and you're like, are you kidding me? So my last tip for you is swallow your pride. Whenever it comes to returns, be gracious and take care of the return quickly. I know that our human nature is we might want to drag our feet. As sellers, we might want to grumble a little bit. We might want to push back. But think about it this way. You might lose the battle, but you'll end up winning the war. So when it comes to how you deal with the conflicts in your everyday life elsewhere, I know for sure when I've raised 3 beautiful kids and had a wonderful time doing it. And sometimes you're like, okay, I might lose this battle, but hopefully I'll win the war. So same thing when it comes to your customers. Just make sure to remember you're in this for the long haul. As you're ramping up to Q4 between now and then, you've got many months to kind of prove yourself. And if you've been selling for a while, hopefully you have been proving yourself. And if you're new, then this is your time to prove yourself. So one of the measurements of customer service is going to be how you deal with cranky and angry customers, unreasonable customers, and just swallow your pride, bend over backwards. Feel free to lose the battle, but win the war. All right, so let me just recap, and then I've got one last thing I kind of want to talk. I told you I'd talk about coupons. I'll talk about that in a second, but let me just recap quickly. Here we go. We're going to zoom down through the list. Number one, PPC ads, and I just want to stress, I can't stress this enough, that what you're doing now during the rest of the year is going to have to change when we hit the Q4 holiday season. So when December 1st rolls around, remember, you're going to have to up those budgets, you're going to have to up those click-through bids that you've got. So just be aware of that and make sure that you set them accordingly, because if you starve yourself there, then everything else is for naught. They're just not going to see you. I mean, your organic positions should be good still, but as far as your PPC positions, you're just not going to beat out the other folks, because other people are going to be doing this. They will be increasing their PPC amounts and their budgets. You need to also, but don't worry, you're not going to spend that money for nothing. You're actually going to get that money back. So, but remember, if you don't do it, it's all for naught. You may as well just not do it at all. So make sure your budgets and PPC click-through amounts are right. Next up is optimizing the keywords of your listing, and we talked about that. And this is something a lot of people struggle with. If you've never done it, just go do it. Just jump into Merchant Words, look around, find the right keywords that you think will help your product, put them in there, and then watch your positioning change. Hopefully, it'll all go up. If you don't, try again because you might not get it right the exact first time. And then if you need help, we have a listing advisor service, which will absolutely be happy to create your title, bullet points, backend keywords for you. It's a small fee for that, of course, but money well spent if you're having difficulty doing it. So the worst thing is do nothing. Do not do nothing. The next best thing is just get in there and do it. Even if you're not the keyword expert, just find some keywords that you think are relevant for your product. And then if you need help, we're happy to help you with our listing advisor service. Now that's for the keywords of your listing. Also, when it comes to the keywords of your listing, I would encourage you to use our ASIN Plus tool. We spend a lot of time making it as great as it can be to find the keywords that your competitors are ranking on. So take all the competitors' ASINs that are competing against your product, or any ASIN if you're just curious to see, and look what other people are ranking on. And let me just take a moment and drill in about why that's important. A lot of people talk about things and products and search for things in different phrases. And so, for example, I was chatting with someone who sells baking dishes. I'm like, well, how many people come and search for your product using the phrase casserole pan? She's like, well, I'd never thought of casserole pan. I always say baking dish. And depending on what part of the country you're from or whatever language makes sense to you, a lot of people use different phrases to describe the exact same things. And so I would encourage you to see how your competitors' products are being ranked, how your products are being ranked, and those keyword phrases that Amazon has now discovered that people are using to rank other products. Make sure you include those in your listing or in your ad campaign to make sure that you send a strong signal to Amazon that your product should participate in those search result pages also. Then, as part of your keyword strategy, whether you're using just regular Merchant Words to discover those kinds of keywords or using the ASIN Plus tool to find the keywords of your competition, you also want to think about the holiday keywords you're going to bake in. You don't need to focus on one holiday. It doesn't have to be all about Christmas or all about Hanukkah or whatever, but make sure that you have holiday-style keywords that includes more than just the names of the holidays. It includes things like gifts for boys, gifts for girls, gifts for, whatever. Make sure that you put yourself in the mind of people who are typing in that search bar, and then ask yourself, if someone's going to search for something, do I want my product to appear there? So if someone's going to search for a gift for a 3-year-old girl, if you have a product that's great as a gift for a 3-year-old girl, make sure you describe your product in that way somewhere in your keywords. All right, so don't forget the holiday keywords. Then we talked about product photography. Do it yourself is fine if you take a beautiful white background picture of your products and take a beautiful lifestyle photo and then have some holiday lifestyle photos ready to go. Happy families unwrapping presents featuring your product. Man, those holiday photos will go great because remember, we talked about the 2 hurdles. The first hurdle is getting your product above the fold, just getting it seen by someone. And then the second hurdle is triggering whatever's going on inside their brain, the endorphin rush of, wow, that's the product I'm looking for. Look at those happy people and that beautiful product. Click. So you need to clear that second hurdle and get inside the mind of the customer. Make sure they're going to want to buy your product. Okay, product photography. Don't forget about social media. Super important to remember that life exists well outside the framework of the market of the e-commerce platform that you're dealing with. So there's a lot going on out there. Make sure that you tap into that zeitgeist that's going on out in the larger internet. Whether you're buying traffic on these other platforms to bring it in, or whether you're just pinging your audience that you've already collected to talk about it, whatever it is, whatever your strategy is outside of the platform and out in social media, do not ignore social media. That's a great way to drive traffic in. Then inventory. Oh man, let me just say this one more time. Do not run out of inventory. Do whatever you can to make sure that you source all your inventory correctly. You get it in fast enough so you can turn around and get it into the warehouses with plenty of time. And then make sure, please make sure you do not run out of inventory. And then that's important both for getting it inside there in the first place, but also not running out during your sales spike. Because, like I said, if you run out during the middle of Q4, then all of these exercises will kind of have been wasted. So make sure to don't run out of inventory. Then the last 3 tips that we talked about all had to do with being great at customer service. So naturally, you need to be the best possible customer service. Answer all the questions, jump in there and talk to customers in a pre-sales way. If people are wondering about your product, you make sure to satisfy all of those questions ahead of time. Be someone who comes back and deals with the customer in the friendliest and gracious possible way, both pre-sales, during the sales process, and then after. So make sure to do outstanding customer service. The next tip along those lines is super fast shipping. You've got an expectation that Amazon set the bar pretty high. high. You got an and all of the e-commerce platforms now really have great expedited shipping. So you need to do your best to compete with that. Unless you're already participating, let them ship it for you is the best thing. But if you don't, make sure to actually keep the bar high. Make sure to ship as fast as you can. And then the last thing is, when a customer wants a refund, I know we don't like it, I know we hate it, I know customers are going to be unreasonable, and I know that the fair thing to do would be go pound sand. You don't deserve a refund. But like I said, feel free to lose the battle but win the war. You send a strong signal that both in the reviews, hopefully you'll get a positive review when you treat someone fair, or when you go above and beyond to treat someone more than fairly. In addition to the positive review, it's also a strong signal to the selling platform that you're serious about customer service. And yeah, you'll lose some money on a couple of customers, but hopefully you'll make it back on all the others. So that's it. You've been hearing me rattle on for almost about an hour now. I'm thrilled to be able to share these tips with you guys. Oh, sorry, the one bonus thing that I forgot to mention. I almost forgot, and that is couponing. Now, a lot of the platforms support couponing, and you can do it in a variety of ways, but in general, don't forget about the power of coupons. Think about it this way. It works great outside of the e-commerce platform, social media, wherever. Offer people a coupon, offer people an incentive, and that'll drive more excitement back to your product. But even inside the platform, even if you didn't capture the outside traffic and drive it in, even inside the platform, couponing is a great way to make your product stand out. So you've done all these things that we talked about: great photography, great positioning, great ads, great everything else. Well, your competitors have probably already done that too. Not all of them. You've got plenty of competitors that aren't as smart as you, but you've got a few competitors that are as smart as you, and they've done all these things too. However, if you're lucky enough to have one of your competitors not offer a coupon, now you're smart enough to offer a coupon. When someone types in a search and they see just a very few products above the fold without scrolling, their eye's going to zoom right to the products, and they're going to quickly do those little eyes tracking software that looks where people look. Studies have shown that when you have that little extra banner that says coupon whatever % off or whatever, that eye tracking studies have shown people zoom right to that. So you're going to give up a little bit of profit, but remember, lose the battle, win the war. If you do some couponing, give up a little bit of your margin there, but in exchange for that, you'll get noticed. And so my last tip for you is, don't forget about coupons. It's an exciting way to drive external traffic into your listing, but it's a super important way to kind of give yourself a little bit of leg up over the competition who might have already done all these other optimization things. So, all right, there you go. There's my little cheat list, my checklist, my little hot sheet. You go down list, check. Make sure to do all those things. If you're an old hat seasoned seller and you've been doing this for years, you kind of know what to expect. If you're brand new to this, just like your first trip to Disney World, don't be discouraged. Just go through it. You'll get through it. It'll be great. When you finally get on the ride, you're going to love it, and it is quite a ride to see your sales go from the normal they do to this nice little bump. So it's a thrilling time. Consider all of these different tips that I've got for you as you optimize your products and your business strategy for Q4. Really excited to be able to share these tips with you as a fellow seller. Really excited for you to go through this and hit Q4, hit the ground running during Q4. Thanks again for inviting me here, and I guess now we've got a little bit of time to open it up for Q&A, or anything you might want to ask me, or anything you might want to, any stories you might want to share. You might want to share, hey George, last year I went through Q4, I did this one tip and it didn't go quite right, so next year I'm going to do it a little bit differently, or whatever. So I'd love to hear your stories or your tips or your tricks. Give me some, and then if you've got any questions, I'd love to take it. But if not, if there's no questions for me, and of course I'll hang on for a minute and listen, but if there's no questions for me, I just want to let you know that it was a thrill for me to spend an hour with you guys chatting and sharing some of the tips. And I love being a seller online. It's a great lifestyle. It's a great way to kind of take control of your life, because this is a business you can do from anywhere. And often people do this as a family. They've got their friends and family and kids helping out, and this is just it's a thrill for me to be involved in this ecosystem, be part of this wide world of e-commerce sellers. So much fun to be here, and I guess I'll just hang out for a minute and see if you have any questions. But if you don't, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
George, did you say that you had, kind of a follow-up link or something people could go to with your website if they wanted to follow up on some of this info?
Yeah, for sure. So let me give you all the ways that you can engage. The URL that I kind of mentioned right at the top was merchantwords.com/Q4. I've got all the tips there. A little kind of checklist I created is all there. You can download that. Also, if members of the supplier community want to go visit another landing page that we set up just for them, that triggers a discount. I'll have to top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't remember what the discount is, but hopefully we want to offer you a little bit of incentive. If you have never signed up with Merchant Words, you can save a few bucks by going there, and that URL is merchantwords.com/supplier community. Love to have you folks visit there and sign up at a discount if you want to give Merchant Words a try. The other way that you can reach out to me or my team at any time is either just shoot me an email directly. That's easy to remember. I'm George, and so my email address is george@merchantwords.com. So hopefully that should be easy to remember. And sometimes I don't get around to answering my email right away, but the team might see it and pick it up and respond to your questions. And then the last tip I have is a way to reach out and ask any questions you have or follow up is on every single page on our website, everywhere. Just go to merchantwords.com. On any page. At the bottom right hand corner you'll see a button, and when our customer service agents are online, and we usually have 24/7 coverage, so they should be online all the time, but when any of our customer service agents are online, you can live chat with them right there. And they'll be happy to surface any questions you have up to whatever team member needs to hear it, or myself if you want to get some feedback right to me. And so in any of those methods, either shoot me an email directly, happy to hear it, or happy to receive your emails directly into my inbox. Reach out to our customer service team. They'll be happy to chat with you live if with any questions or concerns you might have. And got some other URLs that I mentioned for a little discount and some other resources there. So hopefully that gives you enough opportunity or different ways you can reach out and get in touch with us.